Hey everyone, so now that we know how to multiply pretty simple radicals, we're going to take a look at multiplying radicals that also have coefficients. So let's take a look. Okay, as always, the first slide is going to be this perfect square list. Remember, I cannot stress enough how important it is to know your perfect squares, especially when working with radicals. So write it down, print it out, memorize it, do what you gotta do. Okay, so multiplying radicals with coefficients. So remember, coefficients are the numbers that are in front, just like if we had 2x, 2 would be the coefficient. Remember, the numbers under the radicals are called radicands. So if you hear those words, those are the numbers that we will be referring to. Okay, so we want to multiply the radicals below, and it's pretty straightforward, very similar to what we talked about in the last lesson when we multiplied regular radicals without coefficients. So the first thing that you want to do is multiply the coefficients, the numbers outside the radicals. So let's do that first. So we're going to multiply this 2, and we're going to multiply this 4, and we get 8. Next step, multiply the radicands, the numbers inside the radical. Okay, when you do that, you are going to keep the radical, but now it's just going to become 1. And you multiply these together, and that's what goes under your radical. So that's going to give us 56. Okay, so we multiplied our outside numbers, that stayed on the outside. We multiplied our inside numbers, that stayed on the inside. Now from there, we're going to simplify the radical just like we would before. Use your perfect squares. So the largest perfect square that can go into 56 is actually 4. It's pretty small in this case. So that's going to break up into radical 4, radical 14. Remember to keep the perfect square first. We always want to write that first. And then I'm going to just bring down this 8. I'm not going to do anything with it yet. We are going to come back to it, but we're going to just bring it down. Okay, so from there, I'm going to simplify the perfect square, which is 2. I'm going to bring down that square root 14 because we cannot simplify it anymore. And I'm going to bring down this 8. Now we have 8 and we have 2 written right next to each other. So there's a little invisible multiplication symbol there. So our last step would be to multiply all the coefficients. So anything that's not under a radical, we're going to multiply together. And that is our answer. So let me just do that real quick before we go to the next slide. 8 times 2 is 16. Bring down that radical 14. And there you have it. So you multiply the numbers outside the radicals, multiply the numbers inside the radicals, simplify the radical, simplify it completely, and then you multiply whatever coefficients are left, whatever is outside the radical. All right, let's take a look at another one. Okay, express the product in simplest form. Product, we know, means multiply. We can also see that that has a multiplication symbol. Sometimes it won't have that. So this is a word that you're going to have to recognize. Oops. Multiply. Red. Okay. Okay. So we're going to do the same thing. Multiply your coefficients. 9 times 7 gives us 63. Keep your radical, but remember it's going to condense to one radical. And multiply your radicands, the numbers inside. 5 times 15 gives us 75. Okay, so far all we did was multiply coefficients and radicands. Now we're going to simplify our radical. So the largest perfect square that can go into 75, hopefully that's one that you can recognize right away. That would be 25. And 25 times 3 gives us 75. So that would be 25 and 3. I'm going to just bring down this 63, bring it down as we go. Now let's simplify. The square root of 25 is 5. I'm going to bring down this 63. Not going to do anything with it yet, and I'm going to bring down this radical 3. Now we're going to multiply anything that's not under a radical. We're going to multiply our coefficients, and 63 times 5 gives us 315, and then bring down that radical 3 because we cannot do anything with it. Okay, so multiply coefficients, multiply radicands, simplify the radical, and then multiply whatever is left outside the radical. Multiply all those leftover coefficients. Okay, let's take a look at one more example. So this is how it's going to be phrased on Delta Math if you're using Delta Math. So what is the product? We know product means multiply, of 6 radical 10 and 7 radical 20 in simplest radical form. So they want us to multiply it, and then they want us to simplify it. So I'm going to just rewrite this. 6 radical 10 times 7 radical 20. You can do the same process. Multiply those coefficients. 6 times 7 is 42. We're going to condense those 2 radicals to 1 radical by multiplying our radicands. 20 times 10 is 200. Now we're going to simplify our radical 200. I know that 200 is a multiple of 100, which is a perfect square, so I always look out for those double zeros. So that's going to break up into radical 100, radical 2, and we're going to just bring down that 42. Simplify radical 100 and you get 10. Bring down your 42, and then bring down your radical 2. Get the arrow right there. And multiply our coefficients. We have that invisible multiplication symbol there, so we get 420 radical 2. And that's it. So multiply your coefficients, multiply your radicands, simplify your radical using the largest perfect square. That's why it's really important we know those perfect squares, and then multiply whatever's left outside the radical.